There it is. Okay, yay.
Yay!
Hi, Christy.
Hello, how are you, Linda?
I'm good now. For those of you who maybe we're waiting or just seeing us hop on now, it's been a tech 10 minutes of tech figuring things out. So Christy and I are chuckling because we were like, I don't know. We just it was on my end actually. So we figured it out and we're here a little bit late. If you were here, I hope you come back. And if you pop on, please say hello. Please let us know where you're listening from. Between Christy and I, this is streaming in a lot of places, I think. I have it in probably four or five, and you probably have it in a couple. So we just look forward to chatting with you on Fridays, kind of a way to end the week and a way to start the weekend about something with health, something with wellness, something around the kind of work that we do. So thank you. I'm Linda. This is Christy Sirignano, and we are friends and colleagues, and we work in the health and wellness space. And Christy, do you want to say anything? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Christy Siriano. I am a functional wellness coach, and I really focus most of my time and energy helping women overcome autoimmunity, reverse thyroid dysfunction, and balance hormones, especially in midlife. And so, yeah, we both, Linda and I, both absolutely love doing these lives together. And we were just kind of laughing before we came on that who knows what we're going to talk about today.
Well,
so,
we
so
we
this
do
is one of those
know we do know what our topic is. We chose a topic a few days ago, and we're like, okay, let's talk about like toxicity, a diet of toxicity, which is not just your food. There's your diet consists of a lot of things. Anything that you regularly input into your system, I would say, is how I would quickly say it. So we knew we were going to talk about that, but we got derailed with this tech issue. So when we normally would have put our heads together, we were trying to even see if we were going to get on. So we didn't really have a discussion. But with that thought to sort of launch us, that's what I think anyway, Christy. Is that what was in your head?
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, I want to jump right in because toxicity of diet. Last night I was on a group coaching call with my spiritual mastermind. On Thursday nights, I have a spiritual mastermind. And the first thing that we started talking about was what's happening in the Middle East. And one of my clients was like, I've just really been struggling with, what's been going on. And I'm watching the news every single day. And then I'm like imagining things. And her ethnic background is from the Middle East. So she's like, I could be living there right now. So her thoughts just really, she said, for the last 2 weeks have been spiraling her into a dark place. What if this was my family and all of the things. And one of the things we talked about was that she watches the news every single day, and that would be a diet of you know toxicity. That would be a daily intake of things that are very upsetting. And listen, I'm not saying don't be informed, um, but you have to look and see at what point, if I can't sleep, if my imagination is going all over the place and all of that, there's an impact there. It's kind of like if you eat a healthy diet of food and every so often you go and you have some, you're at a party and you celebrate, that's fine. But if you do that every single day, you don't feel well pretty quickly, right? So that, I thought that our conversation last night in my client group was really a great lead in for me in my mind and what I was thinking about for this conversation. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you saw my post when I shared this live link, but I've been kind of laughing about it a little bit to myself as I thought about that word diet
Mm,
this morning, because I actually really intentionally avoid using that word, um,
yes.
because I think it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I don't believe in diets in the traditional sense.
Right.
And I think it encompasses so much more, as you said, so much more than food. So I use the word food choices when it comes to what we put in our mouth very intentionally. And I think diet encompasses so much more. And if you think about, um, like the amount of time that you spend eating during the day, which, most of us eat 3 meals a day. Maybe we have a snack or two in between. Um, versus the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, and then the thoughts that we are thinking.
Yeah.
All of those are more. Air and water is more than the food that we consume, and probably more important. And the thoughts are probably the most important in terms of the quantity that we are consuming and the amount of time that we spend with those things and the amount of influence they have over us. So I think, um, yeah, I think you're exactly right that what we choose to allow in our minds is such a critically important piece of our wellness and of our healing journey. And it is our thoughts that create the physiological stress response in our body that leads
Yes.
to inflammation and disease. And certainly there are other sources of inflammation. There are chemicals in our food and in our air and in our water, and there are pathogens. And certainly there are other things that can cause toxicity and cause stress in our body. But our thoughts are with us all the time, nonstop, 24 hours a day. Even when we're sleeping, our subconscious mind is still working. So I think it is just so, so important to guard. The Bible says, guard your hearts and minds, and think on the things that are pure and good. And like you said, it's not that we can avoid the news. We want to be informed citizens, but especially when there's such heavy things going on in the world, and it's so easy to kind of get sucked into that heavy energy. I think it's even more important to guard our thoughts.
Yeah. Well, and thoughts become things in our body through the endocrine system. The thoughts that we have actually become a chemical product through our hormones. So
Yes.
the biochemistry is of the body is responding to the thoughts and then creating or sending out. And hormones are messengers, right? That's what the job of a hormone is. So messengers are going out throughout the body. I picture, I'm going to date myself. I don't know if you know this. Do you know warning, warning, Will Robinson, warning? Do you know, do you know what I'm talking about? I knew you wouldn't know. That was people who are 50 and over, I think, will hopefully recognize it, or it's only me. Lost in Space used to be a TV show when I was a kid, and there was this robot that this family, the Robinsons, had. They were lost in space, and whenever there was a threat, the robot would go, warning, warning. So I just thought of that. But our hormones are doing that, right? They're sending messages out into the body based on the thoughts that we're having. So taking in the news all the time is one thing that is very impactful on the physiology. If you think, oh, I'm just watching the news, it's huge. It really is, especially when you start to imagine, what if that was my family, or really keep yourself in the same frequency of fear. We had a conversation last night about, there's this frequency of fear, whether it's the war in the Middle East or politics or whatever, but there's a frequency of fear, and you can choose to be in that frequency, or you can choose to, move out of it by choosing a frequency of love. I hear my washing machine. Do you hear that?
No.
Oh, okay, good. I was like, I'll go shut the door if I could hear it. Okay. So anyway, like that's, well, how do I get out of it? Well, not only not inundate yourself, but also choose to experience it from a different place. Don't buy into the fear, the anger, all of that, but stay in a different place, which is a lot bigger deal than we can do in a 25-minute conversation, right? But that to me is the strategy for keeping yourself well. I think another thing is gossip and complaining. So the news is the stuff out in the world, right? But in our own world, right? Women getting together, really gossiping about each other. With the holidays coming, there's a lot of triggers for, oh, my mother-in-law is going to be like this, and I can't stand when my sister does that. Like the complaining and the gossiping. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I agree completely. And I think that our own inner dialogue. There's participating in those things, right? And then there's the inner dialogue thinking about what's going to happen or what did happen. And that inner dialogue, I think I saw one study that suggested that maybe 80% of our thoughts are negative
Yes.
or disempowering thoughts.
Mhm.
And that's pretty stunning, really, when you think about it. If most of us are really living in that place where most of our thoughts are worry or frustration or resent or anger or just stressful, disempowering thoughts. And I always, one of the things I work with my clients on is visualizing. And we do some visualizing of the health and the life that we want to create. And we visualize who we're going to be when we have overcome all of these symptoms that we don't like, the fatigue and the stress and the anxiety and the skin issues and the digestive issues and all of these things, right? Who am I at that point, and how do I show up in the world? Like, do I go out and get the promotion? Do I go out and take a vacation? Do I start a garden? How am I showing up with my kids? How am I showing up in my intimate relationship? Like we visualize all of these things. And some people think that this is kind of woo woo or out there and that this can't possibly be affecting our health. But, if you are a worrier, you are already visualizing, right? You're just doing it in the negative. You're visualizing everything that could possibly go wrong.
Yes.
And when you intentionally flip that and start visualizing everything that can go right and the life experience that you want to create, as Linda said, you are literally changing your biochemistry. You're changing the signaling and the hormones that are flooding your body. You are changing your subconscious programming to get it on board with where you want to be. And you do support yourself. It's not the only factor, but you absolutely do support yourself in creating the health and the life that you want when you intentionally choose to turn off the news, to turn off the gossip, to turn off the inner dialogue of worry or stress or fear about things going on in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and it takes practice and consistency. Like last night in my client group, when we were talking about the war and we were in that conversation, then another client said, because she was talking about her job, and it's very stressful. It's been like 2 to 3 months of intense stress at her job, and she's like, I'm using all the tools before I get to work or when I get home, but when I'm there, they go out the window. And what I said to her is, that's when, it's easy to use the tools in the morning when you're still home and nothing's happening. But if you let them go out the window and then you're in a stressful situation and you're letting yourself go right down, you're a steady diet of stress, right? And being pulled in a million directions. The goal is to actually, in the moment, have the ability to get yourself there, get yourself at a calm place so that you're in that moment from a centered place. And that's going to make all the difference for your health. And so she was like, well, how do you do that? So to your point, Christy, if 80% of our thoughts are negative, and we have, I think, between 70 to 90,000 thoughts a day, depending on how busy we are and how many hours we're up, right? So 80% of 70,000 is a lot. It's a big number. So you have to start to create that other voice. So I was sharing with them, for those of you who are watching and don't know anything about me, I have a daughter who passed in 2019, and she was born into catastrophic medical issues, open heart surgery on the night that she was born, and then it went on from there. And in the first couple of years of her life, I kept imagining, as these medical bills would come in, and I had medical bills, one was 28,000, one was 60,000, like they would come in those kinds of numbers daily. And I was like in all of the, getting bombarded. So same thing as watching the news every day or being with gossipy complainers or negative people. It was a bombardment. And then I let my voice really run away with it. Like, oh my God, what if they take our house? And then how am I going to have this sick child in a homeless shelter with her wheelchair and her oxygen machine and her feeding tube? Like, I just let it run away with me. So what I had to do was start to create a different voice and listen to that voice more. Like, as soon as the negative voice showed up, I would practice saying, well, it's been 3 years and it hasn't happened yet. No. In fact, I haven't seen any evidence of that it's going to happen. In fact, I've never even received one letter that we're taking your house. Like, I had to just start bringing reason and a different voice to the craziness. So you do that in any of these aspects that we're talking about. If you're sitting with a group of people and they're complaining and they're negative, you get to choose. Am I going to participate? Do I want to actually change the subject? Do I want to just be quiet? And when they notice they're not getting, consistent feedback, maybe they'll change the subject. But what can you do consistently? So that's in the area of gossip and complaining. With the TV, you decide what you're going to put on or keep off. Where else, Christy? What else is coming to mind for you? I mean, there's food.
Right. There's the actual food for sure. I think those are all great examples. And I know I teach my clients a whole bucket of different tools. And I know you do too, Linda, that you can use in the moment. I think I love that example of your client that she gave, because I think it's really important to choose our emotional state while we're still at home in a peaceful, calm, neutral setting. Like, we choose our emotional state, we set our intention for the day, how we want to feel, how we want to experience our day, how we want to show up, and what we want to think, what kind of thoughts we want to entertain. And
Right.
then you're right, the real challenge is as we go into the stressful day, how do we keep that intention? And I think it is just a matter of, in the moment, awareness is the first step, right? Catching yourself in those negative thoughts, like you with your bills, catching yourself when you're going down that path and saying, nope, I'm not going to trigger a stress response in my body right now with these thoughts. And choosing, there's a million different ways that you can reframe them, or just turn them off like a light switch and say, nope, not going to do that today. Not going to participate in that. I'm not going to derail my health. I always, one big trigger for me is being late. I hate being late for things.
I know that about you. You've mentioned
Right?
that.
You've probably heard me tell this story before, but I used to, if I was late for a dentist appointment or a haircut or something, I would almost work myself up into a panic attack, because it just bothered me so much. And I didn't want to be disrespectful of someone else's time. And we're supposed to be there at 3:00. And right. So I had to just decide, like, no one's going to die if I'm late for this appointment. Who cares? I mean, obviously I don't want to be disrespectful of someone else's time, but I mean, I'm probably going to sit in the waiting room for 15 minutes anyway, right? Probably.
Exactly.
Like, it's not going to disrupt anyone's day. No one's going to die. It is not worth creating a stress response in my body that's going to harm my health.
Yes.
So I have this running conversation with myself all the time, and I still do. I mean, I'm getting, after years of this, I am a lot more practiced at it than I used to. It's a lot easier for me to stay in the energetic state that I want to be in, and to catch myself when those thoughts come up. But I still have to have these conversations with myself and coach myself through that and say, no, what can I be grateful for about in this moment? I think gratitude is a really good tool for flipping those stressful thoughts. It doesn't matter what is going on, how terrible the things in the world are, how hard things in your home may be. There's always, always, always something that you can be grateful for. And I believe that gratitude is the antidote to almost all depleting, disempowering thoughts and emotions. You can always shift into gratitude in some way, shape, or form. And then from that space, it's not that we don't care that there's a war going on, or that there are hard things in our lives, like sick children who are struggling. I mean, we have to deal with reality, the reality that we're
Yes.
living in. We're not just living in this false, fake, high vibe state all the time where we refuse to acknowledge reality. But when we are in a state of gratitude, and you mentioned earlier, love, I think is the most powerful energetic frequency. When we can intentionally move ourselves into those states, then we can go out and do the work that we need to do, face the things that we have to face, be there for the people that we need to be there for and the hard things in our lives from such a different place.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to make a difference for whether it's the war or a family in your community or your own children, showing up from a place of, practiced gratitude and peace, and who am I going to be? Like set an integrity, set an intention with integrity of who I want to be, and then do your best to be that. And if you miss the mark, if it doesn't happen, if you're 5 minutes late, okay, but I have a standard and an intention for how I want to be and how my intention to show up is. And then putting things, like you said, the gratitude, like sprinkling things in throughout the day, like in terms of food. For instance, this mug, this is not coffee. This is a lot of people know I enjoy my coffee in the morning, and coffee is probably not the best thing for me, although there's a lot of studies that say there's a lot of benefit in coffee. But whether it's coffee or it's the weekend and I'm going to have something that a dessert, I don't really eat dessert, but something, those are the things that, are what's so, but I try to intersperse intentionally and specifically and consistently good things. So what's in here right now is I cut up a couple of organic lemons and 30 cloves of garlic, and I boil it for 10 minutes, and then I throw parsley in and let it steep, and that's what I'm drinking. It actually doesn't taste as bad as it might have sounded, but it's lemon, garlic, and parsley. And in the middle of the day, I have a mug of this just about every day, because that's good for me. So if I can intentionally sprinkle in gratitude, if I can intentionally sprinkle in a change of conversation when I'm among gossipers, if I can intentionally sprinkle in a comedy show over the news, and if I can intentionally make sure I get things that support my body, this is helping my liver clear out, this is helping my digestive system, this is bringing down inflammation, the garlic is great antibacterial, anti-everything, right? So if I can do those things in all of those arenas, now my diet, back to your original point of, diet to me really just means a consistent intake of something. So now my diet is having a lot less of the things that are going to impact me negatively, and more things that are going to support me. That's my goal.
Yeah, I love that. I think perfection is not achievable ever, right? We live in the real world where there are toxins out there all the time, and where we don't eat perfect food, we don't make perfect food choices all of the time. And so I think making the good choices as much as possible, not out of a sense of like restriction, or we're not allowed to do this, but out of a sense of love and care for
Yes.
our human. Um, and it's the same, I think, with our thoughts, with the things that we consume from the television, from podcasts, from things that we read in the news. We are just bombarded with information and input all the time, whether it's um, food, whether it's screens that we're looking at, whether it's thoughts, whether it's communication in all different forms coming at us. And so I think it's so important, especially in this modern era that we live in, to be really discerning and really careful about
Yes.
what we receive. And there are times, Linda, when I am learning something new, or I'm really wanting to understand something. Like maybe it's what's going on in the Middle East right now. Maybe you're someone who like really needs to understand what's going on over there, and you're reading everything that you can read and listening to all these different perspectives. I go through phases of life where I'm in receiving mode, and then I go through phases when I'm like, enough,
Enough.
enough. Yeah, I've got to turn it all off. I've got to reconnect with myself and with my intentions and with my spiritual power source, and show up in the world how I want to show up, rather than just being open and receiving mode all the time.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Two things I want to say. The first is to Debbie. I'm seeing some comments and people saying hello. So hello, thank you for saying hello and for watching. And Debbie says, I'm going to make this drink today. So I just want to respond, Debbie, I hope you do. And if you're in, wherever you follow either one of us, let me know how you like it. It actually doesn't taste bad, but if you don't like it, you can add some raw honey. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I didn't today. But sometimes I will put that in, and the raw honey is also really good. So I just wanted to, since now somebody's going to try this, I feel like I want to tell you that part too. But to your point, Christy, it's kind of like, if you've heard of fasting in terms of food, right? Fasting means taking big chunks of time where you don't put anything in. And it's during those time periods that the body really recovers. That's when autophagy happens, which is like, clearing out of what needs to be cleared out, and regeneration of cells. And, it's important for the liver, for the digestive system, for the blood to have these periods of time, which is why breakfast, the first meal of the day after we sleep, is called break your fast, because you were fasting while you were sleeping. So while we're sleeping, which was last week's conversation on the importance of sleep, having that break from input food-wise is very important and helpful. Having the break of input, what Christy was saying, from all the other things, is very important for our spiritual health and cleanliness. It's very important for our emotional. It's very important for giving a break to our thoughts. So taking a break away from the screens, away from the places where we're feeling bombarded. And that comes with a little bit of, emotional intelligence, like recognizing when your body is saying to you, oh, I think I've had enough. I have to say, a couple weeks ago, we were at my son's family weekend, and he's in a fraternity. And so he wanted us to be at the fraternity house. So it's a big house. It's a fraternity house with all these parents and their kids, but it was really like loud and fun, but loud. And the food was whatever, but the boys were so happy. The young men were so happy to have their families there. But there was this moment where I was like, I feel like I just need to go to the car for a little bit, because there was no place that I could just go and sit down, and I could feel my nervous system was feeling a little overwhelmed with all of it. So recognizing when your body's telling you that, or your emotions are telling you that, and just putting it again in place on a regular basis to be proactive and intentional in your own care.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great kind of way to wrap this up, in
Yes.
that, this is a really important facet of self-care, is being aware of what you are consuming on all levels, right? The food, the thoughts, the communications coming in from all directions. And I think that is such a good point, Linda, of just being aware. And I think so many of us are so disconnected from our own bodies and what she needs, what she's asking us for. So just taking time to breathe and close your eyes and come back into your body. And then having that awareness of what she needs from you at any given time.
Yeah. Yep. So we thank you for listening in. We'll see you next Friday. Christy and I alternate, kind of hosting and who creates whatever our conversation is going to be, but we send it out to all the same places as best as we can. So I hope we see you next Friday. And if there's topics on health or wellness, again, Christy works with women specifically with autoimmune and hormones too, or you're focusing, yeah. Yeah. And my focus is on stress, overcoming trauma, and spiritual connection. In the process of overcoming the past, creating a deeper connection to self and at a spiritual level. So that's what we do. So anything that we can share about that, if you have a question, please send it in. But thanks for listening and have a great weekend, everybody. And Christy, have a great weekend. Is it cold by you? It's cold
It
here.
is. It's cold today.
Yeah. All right. Well, stay warm. Cheers with my
Thank you. You too.
lemon garlic. All right. See you next week.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye.